Hello friends, this is Chandrakant from Mac Technologies. Welcome to Top Brass. Today we will discuss about some of the trends which are based on our learning, especially in the post-COVID-19 era. And the first trend is coming right now. COVID pandemic is probably the most serious issue that the global or the world has seen in last 100 years, and that is why it is very relevant for a leadership emergence of this leadership to happen on various scales, and especially large countries like India, US, China, and so on. So there is a very strong leadership that has emerged, and these leadership are basically creating a mass movement in their own respective countries. And important thing is these leaders are also collaborating with each other so that the global pandemic can be handled, can be tackled, and the entire global economy can come out of this. So I think the trend, number one trend, is that the emergence of very strong leadership that has come out among people, and there are a lot of followers for these people, so that together as one humanity we fight this pandemic. Number two trend is the decline of China. Now, if you try to understand the China as a country, they have prepared their baseline economy based on production. And China always knew, being a newly independent country 70 years back, they already knew that they have a lot of people, the population is huge, and the development is not there. So they, over the years, prepared their production lines to cater to very large requirements. So if you see today across the world, any country is or every country, every human being is using a China made article or a product, whether it is a small toy to very large machinery. Everything is manufactured out of China, because there is no country which has built a baseline economy or the production lines in such a way that they can compete with China in terms of pricing, in terms of distribution, etc. And when it comes to raw material, the dependency of the world is even more relevant if you look at China, because China, being a large country, they have a lot of natural resources. So they also excavate some of these elements which are required by the world, different countries, for production. So China as a country not only provide the prepared goods for consumers in retail, but also the raw material, so that you can buy the raw material at a lower cost and then start manufacturing in your own country. So the dependency of China is, it's well established. They have been ruling the world for last 30 years when it comes to any trade or any manufacturing or any raw material which is required for any industry across the world. With COVID-19 pandemic, all the countries were forced to seal their borders and to basically to reinvent their own production, reinvent how they can get the raw material, etc., for past 2 months. So this has actually shown the first time that the China is having a little bit of issue, and because of the COVID, China themselves shut down their own assembly lines and production lines. So they actually put everything under lockdown for last 2 months, and the other countries which were dependent on these raw materials and the finished goods had to look elsewhere. So now this chain is broken after 30 years, and this could be a decline of China, because many countries are now talking about sanctions on China and different kinds of tariffs which they are going to impose. So after post-COVID, when the lockdown is lifted, the world may come out in a different fashion. It may not be the same as it was in January or in 2019. Number three trends, dear friend, is the era of localization or deglobalization, which essentially means that now the borders are sealed. People are not traveling by ship or by air, and a lot of these material which is required across all countries. There was a sourcing mechanism from each country, and then the whole established business was there for last 40-50 years, and all the supply chain lines were built around this sourcing mechanism. And now for last 2 months that has broken. In fact, if you look at the IT also, or the systems which were developed, was to basically look at the supply chain which was already existing, which is buying from different countries, and there were, in true sense, a true globalization for last 50 years or even 60 years. Now what has happened is, since the borders are sealed, there is no air travel, there is no shipping happening, because the fear of COVID spread is more than what you want to bother about when it comes to supply chain. So most of the countries are now forced to look inwards and to fulfill those supply chain, and hence there is a logical move that once the lockdown is lifted, there could be an alternate mechanism locally available, and hence the countries may not have to look at the global business at all. So I think this is number three very big trend, that world is moving from globalization to localization. Number four trend is just in time concept. And since the supply chain was very well established, there were a lot of systems and there was a lot of processes which were very well established for last 50 to 60 years. So people didn't, there was no need for any country or any large business to stock beyond what is needed. So they didn't have to maintain a huge inventory. And because there was always supply, and if they need something, it can be procured very quickly. Now the borders are sealed, and hence that supply chain is broken, and just in time buying, just in time hire, just in time concept maybe maybe gone after when the government lifts the lockdown after COVID-19 pandemic. uh, I think all the businesses will be required to maintain certain amount of adequate inventory, and which will help them in their production. So this is something new which will emerge after this, and this is number four trend as far as we are concerned. Number five is the emergence of distributed workforce. All these while, even during the Second World War, even before that, the whole measure of the industry was really measured at by considering how many people are working for them, what is their infrastructure, what is their capital investment, and so on and so forth. So now after COVID, uh, that infrastructure is not required, and businesses across the world have seen that if they keep the workforce distributed, it may be less risky, and it could be a good risk mitigation method. So the emergence of work from home as a concept has come up in a big way, and also the distributed workforce. That means you don't have to set up a huge factory or a huge setup in one location, like Boeing has a huge factory in one location. Instead, this business can spread out and then control and properly implement risk mitigation, because all regions may not be affected equally in case there is a pandemic like this in future again. So I think the emergence of distributed force has come up in a big way, and it will become even more stronger after the lockdown is lifted. The number six trend, which is last on the list today, is the digital economy. Now, everybody is predicting that it is not unique, and we will also like to predict that the e-commerce or the digital economy will be the only economy in near future after the lockdown is lifted, because people will not like to go around and going to mall, going to this place, that place. They rather sit in their homes or their offices, small offices, and order whatever they need. So right now it's mostly retail business, predicting that very soon the wholesale business will also emerge on the digital platform, because right now it's only Alibaba, but I think very soon Amazon and all these different websites, Walmart, will come out with a wholesale e-commerce platform other than retail. So the whole digital economy of buying things, and you can literally, you would be able to buy anything on the internet, even from starting from objects, articles, even services you should be able to buy, and education as well. So the whole scenario is going to change. In fact, education and media, these are the two businesses which are going to see major recalibration in their whole business. Some of the jobs which people have lost during the past 2 months are not going to come back. Parents are not going to send their kids to school even if the school opens, because nobody wants to put their children at risk by sending them to school. So there is going to be a major changes, starting with media and followed by education and then followed by rest of the industry. I think the digital economy will take off in a very big way, where people are only buying using digital platforms. These are the 6 trend predictions we would like to make, and I will be more than happy to hear your comments. Do write back to us and we will engage with you. See you next time. Until then, bye bye.